Welcome to today's presentation. Today, I'll be covering Administrative Guide Procedure 33002, Administrative Sick. Now, before we begin, be aware, this is a really important procedure. Understand that people report sick, specifically administrative sick, every single tour. So it's something that is done very frequently. In addition, be aware that you should study this procedure, 33002, Administrative Sick, in conjunction with Administrative Guide 33001, Regular Sick. They are very similar procedures and should be studied together. Now, to begin, let's begin with the definition of administrative sick. A sick excusal for one tour of duty which does not require the visit to the department surgeon. We know everybody, when they report sick, they want to report administrative sick for that reason, because they don't have to visit their department surgeon. That's why everybody wants to report administrative sick. All right, now, the two-hour rule. Very important rule. Numerous promotional exams right here. A request for administrative sick must be made at least 2 hours prior to the start of the tour for which the leave will be granted. Let me give you an example. You do day tours. Your tour begins at 07:05 hours. If you would like to report administrative sick, you have to call and request administrative sick by at least 05:05 hours. Because if you call and request administrative sick less than that 2 hours, that desk officer supervisor will not be allowed to grant you administrative sick. That is the 2-hour rule. Okay, and to get ahead of myself, understand whether you're requesting the first tour administrative sick or requesting a second tour administrative sick, the 2-hour rule applies. Now, when you report administrative sick, it's good for one tour. A UMOS must report for duty on the next scheduled tour following the administrative excusal. It's only good for one tour. You request administrative sick, you're granted administrative sick, you're out administrative sick for one tour, and as soon as that tour is over, you're back to full duty. All right, now, what happens if you're still sick after that first tour? Well, if the sickness continues into the next day, the UMOS may request the second administrative sick day at least 2 hours prior to the start of the next scheduled tour. The 2-hour rule applies whether you're requesting the first tour administrative sick or the second tour administrative sick. The 2-hour rule applies. Now, understand that sick occurrence, that first tour and then the request for the second tour, should count as one sick occurrence. At the beginning of this procedure right now, we're going to now go over all the reasons when administrative sick will not be granted. I repeat, will not be granted. It's essential that you memorize all these reasons to deny administrative sick. Why? When you're assigned as the desk officer / supervisor in the command and you receive a phone call from a member service requesting administrative sick, it's going to be up to you to decide, well, if he qualifies for administrative sick. And if he qualifies, you could grant it. And if he doesn't qualify, you have to deny administrative sick. And here's the reasons. Now, please note, I'm about to go over 8 reasons when the desk officer / supervisor may not grant administrative sick. But there are a total of 9. I'm going to go over 8 right now, but there are a total of 9. Why? Because we already went over the first rule, and that is the 2-hour rule. So we got the following 8 plus the 2-hour rule, a total of 9 reasons when the desk officer / supervisor must deny administrative sick. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over these 8 reasons, and I'm going to give you an example of each. Administrative sick is not authorized for injuries. Okay, what's the example? The example is you are playing basketball with your friends before you go to work. You twist your ankle, and your ankle is hurting you so much that you don't think you could go to work. Or maybe you need to go to the doctor for that injury that you just sustained. You are not allowed to be granted administrative sick for that injury. Second, line of duty injuries or illnesses. You are not allowed to be granted administrative sick for LOD injuries or illnesses. So let me give an example. You're chasing a perp at work. You twist your ankle. You hurt yourself, an injury in a line of duty. You report that line of duty, but you don't report sick. The next day you wake up and your ankle's really hurting you and you don't think you can make it to work because of that line of duty injury. Well, you can report sick, but you cannot be granted administrative sick. And that also applies for line of duty illnesses. And you might say, what is a line of duty illness? And I have a great example of this. It actually happened to me. Chasing a perp. I was jumping fences, chasing after this perp, and I got scratched up with barbed wire. And yes, I went line of duty. I reported that line of duty injury for the scratches, but I went to the hospital and I got a tetanus shot. The next day, I woke up with a 102-degree fever because of the tetanus shot. That is a line of duty illness. When I called and reported sick for that next tour I was supposed to work, I was not allowed to be given administrative sick. I had to report regular sick. You are not to be allowed to grant administrative sick for line of duty injuries or illnesses. And the third one, UMOS performing a voluntary exchange of tours, a mutual. A mutual, when somebody on the 4 to 12 and you on a day tour want to switch tours. He's going to work for you and you're going to work for him. That's a mutual. We cover that procedure, okay, later on. Well, you are not allowed to be granted administrative sick if you are performing a mutual. Then we have the next three reasons to deny administrative sick. UMOS designated as chronic absence category B. Administrative sick is not authorized for chronic B. And this is the phrase to remember. Chronic A is okay, chronic B is bad. A is okay and B is bad. Okay, that's what you got to remember. A is okay and B is bad. When you deal with administrative sick, chronic A, the person's chronic A, you could still grant them administrative sick. But when you find out that person is chronic B, you have to deny administrative sick. Now, it's great if that's all you needed to know there, but you have to know what chronic B is. If you know it's chronic B, you know you have to deny administrative sick. And we're going to go over this definition of chronic B in a little while. We'll cover it in the slide. Okay, but let me just quickly go over it now. If you report sick 6 or more times in a 12-month period, you are considered chronic B. But please note, initial line of duties and hospitalization would not be counted in that situation. So if you went sick 6 or more times in a 12-month period, okay, and one of those sicknesses for initial line of duty for hospitalization, well then you'd only be sick 5 times in a 12-month period, and you would not be considered chronic absent category B. But if you were sick 6 or more times in a 12-month period, you are considered chronic B, okay, and you will be denied administrative sick. And there's another reason when you'll be considered chronic B. If you report sick 4 or more times in a 12-month period, except for that initial line of duty or hospitalization, and you lose a lot of work days, and you lose 40 or more work days, you're considered chronic B, and you will be denied administrative sick. Then we have the 5th reason to deny administrative sick. You got a toothache. You have a dental problem. Guess what? You cannot go administrative sick for dental problems. And we have number 6, stress-related or other psychological conditions. That would scare the shit out of me, excuse my language. Why? If somebody calls you as the desk officer/supervisor and requesting administrative sick, and the reason he wants to go sick is because he's stressed out. Oh, you're stressed out? You don't think you can go to work because of the stress or for psychological conditions? Well, no, you got to report regular sick. You have to deny administrative sick. And in the real world, I would say, yeah, officer, I'm going to send an RMP there to pick you up, take you to the department surgeon. He's going to check you out because I don't want him to do anything to himself that he shouldn't be thinking of. Okay, but in the patrol guide, it says he has to go regular sick, okay, for stress-related or other psychological conditions. Reason number seven, when administrative sick is not authorized for, is for a major illness. Understand the concept behind that. It's a major illness. We know when you report administrative sick, it's good for one tour. And if you're still sick, you can request a second tour. But after that, you're supposed to go back to work. Well, for a major illness, you're not going to be better within 2 tours. So you have to report regular sick for a major illness. You have to deny administrative sick for major illnesses. And lastly, the discretion of the supervisor. When, in the judgment of a supervisor, it is inappropriate. And I always use the same example. What situation could I put you in that would be inappropriate for the supervisor to grant administrative sick? My example is somebody calls up and says, I want to report administrative sick, and I have court today. Sorry. In that situation, me as a supervisor determined that, hey, you know what? It's not appropriate for me to grant you administrative sick when you have court. So in that situation, you should go regular sick. And there are the 8 reasons. Plus the 2-hour rule is 9 reasons. And here it is, the best way to remember administrative sick, reasons to deny it. 9 total reasons, and an acronym is SLCM-MD+. Please note, I don't use that many acronyms, but this is an acronym I do use, and I recommend it. This is a list you must memorize. It's been on so many promotional exams, you must memorize the list of situations when you, the desk officer/supervisor, must deny administrative sick. And they want to report sick, they can report regular sick, but you are not allowed to grant them administrative sick. So let's go through the acronym SLCM-MD+. S, the supervisor determines it's inappropriate. The situation when a person says they have court. You supervisor, well, it's not appropriate for me to give you administrative sick when you have court. Deny it. L, for late. You call less than 2 hours before his tour. Sorry, you called late. Okay, you didn't follow the 2-hour rule. I have to deny administrative sick as the desk officer/supervisor. The second L, line of duty, illness or injury. Line of duties, no administrative sick. Then we have the I for injuries, the twisted ankle playing basketball with your friends. The C for chronic B. A is okay and B is bad. A is okay and B is bad. Okay, remember the phrase, and we're going to go through, again, the definition of what chronic A and chronic B is on the next slide. And then we have the mutual. When you switch tours with somebody and you follow the mutual procedure, yes, you will not be allowed to be granted administrative sick. The second M is for major illnesses. You're not going to be better within those 1 or 2 tours administrative sick, so you have to report regular sick for major illnesses. Dental problems, the toothache, report regular sick, no administrative sick. And plus, stress-related or psychological conditions. You are not allowed to be granted administrative sick. SLCM-MD+. It's so important because you, the desk officer, must determine if this person is eligible for administrative sick. And these are the reasons when they're not eligible for administrative sick. Memorize the list. Now, I talked about, we know, you are chronic sick category A, you can be granted administrative sick. You're chronic sick category B, you must be denied administrative sick. Here is the 2 situations that make you either category A, category B. Chronic sick category A, you are must report sick for any reason except the initial line of duty or for hospitalization at any time 4 or more times within a 12-month period. There it is. You're A if you're sick 4 or more times in a 12-month period. But remember, does not count that initial line-of-duty injuries or any type of hospitalization. Chronic A. Okay, you can give him administrative sick. But you determine a chronic B, you got to deny it. And here's the definition of chronic B. A UMOS who reports sick for any reason except initial line-of-duty hospitalization at any time 6 or more times in a 12-month period or 4 or more times in a 12-month period, and you lose 40 or more work days. Be careful, not calendar days. Know your definitions of what chronic A is and chronic B is. If you're chronic A, you could be granted administrative sick. If you're chronic B, you must be denied administrative sick. Finally, the procedure begins. Here we go. When a UMOS requests administrative sick excusal from duty, what does he do? Picks up the phone and calls his command. That uniform member service will notify the desk officer / supervisor at the assigned command by telephone or in person at least 2 hours before the start of scheduled tour and request administrative sick. The 2-hour rule. There it is. We talked about it at the beginning, and now the procedure begins, and there's the 2-hour rule again. The 2-hour rule. You gotta call, okay, before that 2-hour mark. You're performing a day tour 0705, call before 0505. In addition, you gotta let the supervisor know if you have to go to court. That UMOS will inform the desk officer / supervisor of any pending arraignment or scheduled appearance in either court, trial room, or any other governmental agency. Let them know you have these type of appearances. Well, what happens if your command is closed and you can't call? Or your command, there's no supervisor available. Well, what do you do then? You can't talk to a supervisor or your command's closed. You can't request administrative sick. That uniform member service, if the command has no available supervisor or is otherwise closed at the time of requesting administrative sick, that member service will call the medical division sick desk supervisor to request the administrative sick and will notify their command when it reopens. No supervisor, command's closed, call the sick desk supervisor instead and request administrative sick from the sick desk supervisor. And then, of course, you got to call your command, notify your command, okay, when it opens. Now, we're on to the responsibilities of the desk officer. Ring, ring, ring. Sergeant Yancek, 81st Precinct Desk. How may I help you? Oh, Officer Jones, you want to report administrative sick. The desk officer, he's going to have to query the medical division sick reporting system and determine if the member is eligible for administrative sick. There it is. That is why you need to know SLCM MD Plus, because you just received a call from a member service who wants to go administrative sick, who is requesting administrative sick. You got to determine if he's eligible. And how do you do that? You're going to do it by querying the medical division sick reporting system. And there's SLCM MD Plus, because you're the one who will determine, officer, I'm sorry, you're ineligible for administrative sick. I have to deny it. Or you say, officer, you are eligible for administrative sick. Would you like to report administrative sick? SLCM MD Plus. Those are the reasons you may not grant administrative sick. Really quick. I know we've gone through this a couple times already, okay, but it is essential that you know it. That's why I'm going over it again. SLCM MD Plus the S. The supervisor determines it inappropriate. Deny administrative sick. L for late. He does not call. He calls less than 2 hours before his tour. You have to deny it. Line-of-duty injuries, illnesses. Deny it. Injuries. Deny it. Chronic B. A is okay. B is bad. Deny it. Mutual. Deny it. Major illness. Deny it. Dental problems. Deny it. Stress-related psychological conditions. Deny it. These are all the reasons we will deny administrative sick. Now, understand the overall concept of what administrative sick is. The concept is, oh, I don't feel good. I got the sniffles. That's what administrative sick is for. Or, oh, I think I shit my pants. Oh, I got the shits. I'm not feeling too good. I got some diarrhea. Well, that's a situation that you'll be granted administrative sick for. Okay, there it is. Now, the desk officer, you determine, hey, you're not eligible for administrative sick, got to report regular sick. Okay, you determine, you're the desk officer, you determine if they're eligible for administrative sick or not. And if they're not, you make them report regular sick. Okay, and of course, we have to comply with AG 33004, notifying court, child room, or other agencies when a member service reports sick, if appropriate. So if they tell you they have court, you're going to have to follow that procedure in addition to this procedure. The newest update to this procedure, because when you, the desk officer / supervisor, when you say, yes, officer, you can report administrative sick, you granted them administrative sick. You're the one who's got to enter that into the computer system. The desk officer / supervisor will place a UMOS on administrative sick via the medical division's sick reporting system and provide the sick serial number if the member is eligible. So, ring, 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 Sergeant Yancek, 81st Precinct Desk, how may I help you? Oh, it's Officer Jones. Oh, Officer Jones, you want to report administrative sick? Oh, Officer Jones, I determine you're eligible for administrative sick. I will enter. Officer Jones is being placed out administrative sick in the medical division's sick reporting system. Oh, Officer Jones, here is your sick serial number, okay, for your administrative sick. Now we have some duties of the uniform member service. We have some restrictions because that uniform member service must remain in his residence or other authorized location unless we have situations when he's allowed to leave his residence. Now, please note, 2 of the 3 situations make total sense. The third one doesn't, which I'll explain. Okay, so these are the reasons when a uniform member service might leave their residence when they're supposed to be in their residence. Permission to leave is granted by the department surgeon and the sick desk supervisor. So let me give you an example of this. You were scheduled for the day tour. At 4 o'clock in the morning, you called up your desk officer, you requested administrative sick, you were granted administrative sick. Now, it's the day tour. You got to stay in your residence for that day tour. Okay, but here's the first exception. What happens if at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's the day tour, you're supposed to stay in your residence, the school calls you and your child got injured at school and needs to come home, they're sick. They're injured or they're sick. Well, you're not allowed to leave your residence because it's your regular tour. You're out administrative sick. Well, you'll have to get permission to leave from your department surgeon or the sick desk supervisor. Call up, say, hey, I need to pick up my kid. He got hurt at school. Right? And they'll give you permission to leave your residence. Okay, there's the exception. Second exception, when you can leave your residence. When you're out administrative sick, it's outside your assigned tour of duty. So in other words, you're scheduled for the day tour. You reported administrative sick on your day tour. The day tour just ended. Guess what? You can leave your residence because it's outside your assigned tour of duty. So once the 4 to 12 starts, you're free to go outside. You're free to leave your residence. And the last one doesn't really make sense. If you're RDO, you're allowed to leave your residence. But think of it like this. You reported administrative sick. It's good for 1 tour. As soon as your tour is over, you're full duty again. And if you like the second day, okay, at least 2 hours prior to start a tour, you're going to call for the second day. And for your tour, you have to stay in your residence. And as soon as your tour is over, you're full duty again. So, but if you're RDO, you could leave your residence. Doesn't really make sense. Now, what happens if you went sick for your first tour, okay, and you were back full duty after your tour ends, and the next day, you're still out sick. You're still feeling sick. You will notify the desk officer / supervisor at the assigned command or the sick desk supervisor if the command is closed at least 2 hours before the next scheduled tour if unable to report for duty due to continued illness. That is how you request a second tour. But what happens if you were out sick, administrative sick for your first tour, Okay, you requested administrative sick and were granted administrative sick for your second tour, and the next day you're about to start your third tour and you're still sick. Well, guess what? If it is necessary for the UM West to continue beyond the second administrative sick day, a member will report regular sick and be guided by the sick desk. So, in that scenario, you go regular sick after those 2 tours. And what the medical division should do, they should consolidate, those reporting sick to 1 incident. Now, we have a rule, and this rule, again, for administrative sick doesn't make so much sense, but it says you will not leave your city or residence counties without the approval of the chief of personnel, a very high-level person, the chief of personnel. And the reason why it doesn't really make so much sense is, again, when you report administrative sick, it's good for 1 tour. And as soon as your tour is over, you're really back to full duty. Okay, so you can go anywhere when you're full duty, but if you're out administrative sick, you can't leave your city or residence counties. And if you want to leave your city or residence counties, you need the approval of the chief of personnel. And how would you make that request? You make that request through the district surgeon. Then we have this note that they talk about your tours. All right, what we're going to do is we'll read it and we'll give you examples regarding tours. UM West, whose tours vary on a day-to-day basis, will be confined to their residence or authorized location during the tour of duty they were scheduled to perform on the day that they reported sick. This tour of duty will become the UM West's tour for the duration of the sick occurrence. Give you an example. You reported sick on Monday and you were scheduled for the day tour and you reported administrative sick on that day tour. On Tuesday, you were scheduled for the 4 to 12. But guess what? If you're going to request administrative sick for that second tour, you have to consider that day tour as your official tour of duty. Why? Because the tour of duty that you were scheduled to perform on the day you reported sick will be your official tour of duty for the entire sick occurrence. So that would include the second tour request. Now, desk officer's job. So important, recently updated also. You better know the 3 entries you have to make. 3 entries the desk officer / supervisor must make. 3 entries he must make when somebody reports administrative sick. And please note, these exact 3 entries are also made when somebody reports regular sick. So entry number 1 is an entry in the sick log. And he will also have to make an entry in the telephone record. And lastly, the newest addition is you must make an entry in the centralized personnel resource CPR system. Okay, so let's really reinforce these 3 entries. Record pertinent information in the sick log and the telephone record. Make an entry in a CPR system. 3 entries by the desk officer when somebody reports administrative sick. Then we have to talk about some notifications. Okay, the first notification the desk officer might have to make. It's not always made. Notify the relieving desk officer / supervisor if the member is scheduled to perform duty with either of the next 2 platoons. Okay, so let me give you an example of that. I'm on a day tour. I'm a sergeant on a day tour. I'm the desk officer, and an officer reported sick, and I granted him administrative sick. And that officer is scheduled for either the 4 to 12 or the midnight. In that scenario, me, the desk officer, will have to notify the relieving desk officer / supervisor of these circumstances. And then we have 2 other possible notifications. And I'm telling you, please be careful. It's very easy to mix these 2 up. Okay, and it's very easy to write an exam question on it. The desk officer will have to notify the sick desk supervisor if special or unusual circumstances exist regarding UMS reporting sick. And I love it because they give you examples of what special or unusual circumstances are. UMS reporting sick from out of state or out of country is considered special and unusual, and you, the desk officer / supervisor, must notify the sick desk supervisor. Now, those two examples, let's illustrate it. So you're on a desk. Ring, ring, ring. Sergeant Yanisik, 81st Precinct Desk. How may I help you? Oh, Officer Jones, you want to report administrative sick. And you were in California, Napa Valley, drinking wine? Okay, now in that scenario, he's reporting sick from out of state. That is special and unusual. You, the desk officer / supervisor, notify the sick desk supervisor. Ring, ring, ring. Sergeant Yanisik, 81st Precinct Desk. How may I help you? Oh, Officer Jones, you're in Aruba and you're drinking pina coladas by the pool. That is a special or an unusual circumstances because he's reporting sick from out of country. Notify the sick desk supervisor. And what I don't want you to mix this up is with this following notification. The desk officer / supervisor must notify the medical division's absence control and investigations unit if the UMOS is suspected of malingering. There's the word, malingering. Notify the absence control and investigations unit. What does malingering mean? Well, it doesn't say it in the patrol guide, but in the definition of malingering, it says to feign illness in order to avoid duty. If you suspect somebody of malingering, you, the desk officer / supervisor, pick up the phone, call the medical division's absence control and investigations unit. Do not mix up when the desk officer / supervisor notifies the sick desk supervisor for special and unusual circumstances with when the desk officer must notify the medical division's absence control and investigations unit when he's suspected of malingering. And the last duty of the desk officer / supervisor is to query the medical division's sick reporting system to ensure UMOS who reported sick is listed as being sick on sick report. What is that? That's saying you're going to check the computer system to make sure you listed them out as being administrative sick. Because one of your duties is when somebody is granted administrative sick, you're going to enter it in the medical division sick reporting system that they report administrative sick. So you're checking yourself. But then again, we have another situation. Maybe the command was closed or a supervisor was not available in the command, and that member called the sick desk supervisor to request administrative sick. And maybe the sick desk supervisor granted them administrative sick because the command was closed. Well, you're checking to make sure that that member was listed in the medical division sick reporting system as being out sick. And then we have the last duty in the procedure. And the last duty is not a sergeant's duty. It is specifically a lieutenant's duty, the operations coordinator. Operations coordinator is the lieutenant's position. Please note, if you're studying for a sergeant's exam, you do not need to know this one duty in this procedure because it is a lieutenant's duty. If you're studying for a lieutenant's exam or a captain's exam, do you need to know this duty? Absolutely. Remember the golden rule. You want to study anyone who you could be on test day or anyone who you could supervise. So as a sergeant, studying for a sergeant's exam, you can't be a lieutenant. You don't need to know this duty. Studying for lieutenant, you can be assigned to this position and you need to know this responsibility of that lieutenant. And as a captain, you're going to be supervising that lieutenant. So yes, you need to know the lieutenant's duty. So this really only applies for lieutenants and captains exams. That lieutenant has one duty. He will access the medical division sick reporting system periodically throughout the tour and ensure the department records are updated as necessary. I think the key word here is periodically. Know when you have to access that system as the operations coordinator. And there it is. Administrative Guide 330.02, Administrative Sick. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, any feedback whatsoever, please feel free to email me at mike@elitestrategictraining.com or call my cell phone, 516-761-9101. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear any comments you have about this presentation. 330.02, Administrative Sick. was effective as per revision order number 17 of 2023, which was dated April 26th, 2023.